Our clubhouse was a sanctuary of steel and leather until a kid in a dinosaur shirt walked in and whispered words that turned our motorcycles into ticking time bombs. The air in the clubhouse was thick with the familiar trinity of our religion: stale beer, old leather, and gasoline. It was a Tuesday afternoon, the kind of lazy, sun-bleached day where the heat makes the asphalt shimmer, and the only sensible thing to do is sit in the shade and wait for the world to cool down. I was at my usual table in the back, nursing a lukewarm bottle and watching my boys. Grizz was polishing a chrome primary cover with the focus of a surgeon, his massive bearded face reflected in the metal. Snake and Chopper were locked in a silent, intense game of arm wrestling that had been going on for a solid 5 minutes, their knuckles white. It was peaceful. It was our sanctuary. That's why, when the heavy oak door creaked open, every head snapped towards it. We don't get walk-ins. Ever. People in this town know who we are. They know what this place is, and they know to give it a wide berth. Standing in the doorway, silhouetted against the blinding white sunlight, was the smallest figure I'd ever seen cross that threshold. It was a kid, maybe 7 or 8 years old, with a mop of sandy blonde hair and a t-shirt with a cartoon dinosaur on it. He wasn't crying, or lost. He was just standing there, his small hands balled into fists at his sides, looking right at us. The silence in the room stretched until it was a physical thing. You could hear the hum of the old beer fridge, the drip of a leaky tap. Grizz slowly set the chrome cover down. Snake and Chopper's match ended without a victor, both of them staring at the kid. I'm the president of this club. My name's Stone, and my job is to handle things. I pushed my chair back, the sound scraping loudly in the quiet room. You lost, kid? I asked. My voice came out like gravel, the way it always does. The boy didn't flinch. He took a hesitant step inside, letting the door swing shut behind him with a heavy thud, plunging the room back into its familiar dimness. His eyes scanned the room, passing over the sea of leather cuts, patches, and grim faces until they landed on me. He walked straight towards my table, his worn-out sneakers making no sound on the dusty floorboards. My hand instinctively moved to my side, resting on the familiar weight beneath my jacket. Not because I thought this child was a threat, but because my instincts were screaming that something was fundamentally wrong with this picture. He stopped a few feet from me, looking up with eyes that were startlingly blue and serious. They weren't the eyes of a child. They held a strange, unnerving gravity. He didn't seem intimidated by the circle of hulking men who were now all on their feet, watching his every move. He was focused entirely on me. "Are you the boss?" he asked, his voice clear and steady. I grunted, leaning forward on my elbows. "I'm the one in charge. What do you want?" He swallowed, his small Adam's apple bobbing. "You have to listen to me," he said, his tone urgent now. "It's important." Grizz took a step forward. "All right, that's enough. Your mama's probably worried sick. Let's get you home." The boy ignored him completely, his eyes locked on mine. "You have to look under your bikes," he said, his voice dropping to a conspiratorial whisper. "All of them. Right now." A few of the guys chuckled. Snake snorted. "Is this a prank? Did your big brother put you up to this?" The kid's expression didn't change. He shook his head, a frantic little motion. "No. It's the shiny things, the little boxes. They're not supposed to be there. They're bad." My blood went cold. It was the way he said it, the specific, chilling detail. Shiny things. Little boxes. That wasn't a child's fantasy. That was information. My gut, the one that had kept me alive through 2 tours overseas and 3 decades in this life, clenched into a tight, icy knot. I held up a hand, and the room fell silent again. I studied the boy. He was just a kid in a dinosaur shirt, but in that moment, he felt like a prophet delivering a death sentence. "Where did you see these boxes?" I asked, keeping my voice low and even. "On the one with the big eagle," he said, pointing a small, grubby finger towards the window. He was pointing at my bike, my custom panhead, my throne. And the other ones too. I saw the man put them there. He wore a blue hat and drove a white van. That was it. That was all I needed to hear. A white van had been parked across the street for most of the morning. We'd clocked it, but wrote it off as a utility worker, a mistake that could get us all killed. I stood up so fast my chair fell over with a crash. "Outside! Now!" I barked. The boys didn't hesitate. They moved as one unit, a wave of leather and denim pouring out into the searing afternoon sun. I grabbed the kid's shoulder, maybe a little too hard. "You stay right here." We spilled into the parking lot, the heat hitting us like a physical blow. Our bikes were lined up in a perfect gleaming row, a chrome and steel testament to our brotherhood. They were our lives, our souls forged in metal, and they might be our coffins. "Nobody touches anything," I ordered. "Get down and look. Use your phones for a light." A dozen of the toughest men I've ever known dropped to their hands and knees without a word, their faces grim. The joking from a minute ago was a distant memory, replaced by a deadly, focused silence. I went straight to my panhead. My heart was hammering against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat of dread. I got down on the hot, gritty asphalt, the smell of hot metal filling my nostrils. I peered into the shadows of the undercarriage, past the oil pan and the frame, and then I saw it. Tucked up high against the frame, held in place by a powerful magnet, was a small, black plastic box. It was no bigger than a pack of cigarettes, and on the side, a single, tiny red light was blinking, once every 2 seconds. A patient, rhythmic pulse that was counting down to hell. My blood didn't just run cold, it turned to solid ice in my veins. That little blinking light was a death sentence, a tiny, pulsing star, promising oblivion. For a second, the world went silent. All I could hear was the frantic thumping in my own chest and the steady, mocking blink of that red light. Then from down the line, Snake's voice tight and strained. "I got one too." Chopper followed a second later. "Here too, son of a bitch." A chorus of confirmations rippled down the line of bikes. Every single one was rigged. This wasn't a rival club. This wasn't some street beef settled with chains and knives. This was professional. This was calculated. Someone wanted to wipe us off the face of the earth, all at once. My training, the muscle memory from a life I thought I'd left behind in the desert sand, kicked in. I pushed myself backward, scuttling away from the bike on my hands and knees like a crab. "Back away," I roared, my voice cracking with an urgency I hadn't felt in years. "Slow and easy. Everybody back. Now." The guys responded instantly, a disciplined retreat born of countless close calls. They moved with a fluidity that looked casual, but was anything but, their eyes wide, fixed on the row of motorcycles that had transformed from symbols of freedom into a massive, daisy-chained bomb. "No phones!" I yelled, the thought striking me like a physical blow. "Turn them off. Don't make a call. They could be triggered remotely." A frantic fumbling of hands into pockets followed as my brothers powered down their devices. We fell back to the clubhouse door, a semicircle of grim-faced men staring at our own potential graveyard. My mind was racing, trying to process the sheer scale of it, the planning, the execution. Who had the resources? Who had the balls? And more importantly, why? We kept to ourselves, ran our businesses, and dealt with our problems in-house. We weren't at war with anyone. At least we didn't think we were. Then I remembered the boy. He was still inside. The kid who had walked into the lion's den to save the lions. Grizz was next to me, his face pale beneath his thick beard. "Grizz, get the men to the back. Set up a perimeter. No one in or out. Use the landlines to call Patch and the others at the garage. Tell them to check their vehicles. Tell them code black." He nodded, the command settling his nerves. He started barking quiet orders, and the men melted away, leaving me alone at the threshold. I took one last look at my panhead, that blinking red eye mocking me from the shadows, then turned and went back inside. The clubhouse felt different. The air was heavy, charged with a new, terrifying energy. The kid was right where I'd left him, standing by the overturned chair. He looked smaller now, his face etched with worry as he watched me. I walked over and crouched down in front of him, forcing my face into something that I hoped looked reassuring. "You did a good thing, kid. A very brave thing," I said, my voice softer than I thought I was capable of. "What's your name?" "Leo," he whispered. "Leo," I repeated. "That's a strong name. Now I need you to tell me everything you saw. Don't leave anything out. The man with the blue hat. Can you describe him?" He nodded, his big blue eyes focused on my face. He was tall. Not big like you guys. Just tall. And he had sunglasses on. He didn't see me. I was hiding in the bushes in the park, playing spy. He paused, and for a second I was reminded that he was just a little boy playing a game. His van was white. It didn't have any words on it. It was just white. He was quick. He had a bag, and he just knelt down by each bike for a second, like he was tying his shoe. The efficiency of it chilled me to the bone. This was a professional operator. My gaze fell on the floor by the door, and I saw a beat-up skateboard with bright orange wheels. "Is that yours, Leo?" He nodded. "I left it outside." My heart squeezed. He'd ridden his skateboard here. A little boy on a skateboard, riding into a war zone to warn the enemy. The sheer, unadulterated guts of it was staggering. "Leo, why did you come here? Why did you warn us? You know who we are. People in this town, they stay away from us." He looked down at his sneakers, shuffling his feet. "My dad, he's a soldier. He's away right now. But he told me that you have to warn people if you see something bad is going to happen, even if you're scared. He said that's what heroes do." The words hit me harder than any punch. A soldier's son. Of course. Just then, Grizz burst back through the side door, his face ashen. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the row of bikes outside with a new kind of horror. "Stone," he breathed, his voice ragged. "They're not bombs." I stared at him, confused. "What the hell are you talking about? We all saw the lights." "I know. Patch just called in from the garage," Grizz said, struggling to get the words out. "He found one on his truck. He's ex-EOD, you know. He disarmed it. It's a GPS tracker, Stone. A military-grade tracker with a small C4 charge. They're not meant to just blow us up here. They can be detonated remotely, sure, but the main purpose, they're tracking us. They're tracking all of us." The implication was suffocating. This wasn't about a single, spectacular explosion. This was about intelligence. They wanted to know our routines, our safe houses, our businesses, our families. They were mapping our entire world before they burned it to the ground. This was a hunt, and we were the prey. I looked from Grizz's terrified face to Leo's innocent one. The kid had just saved us from walking into a meticulously planned slaughter. But as the pieces clicked into place, a far more terrifying thought began to form. They were professionals. They were thorough. They wouldn't leave loose ends. "Grizz," I said, my voice deadly calm. "You said you searched everywhere?" "Yeah, the bikes, the cars, in the lot. Everything." "Search again," I ordered. "Check everything. Under the tables, the dumpsters, every vehicle, no matter who it belongs to. Every single thing that came onto this property today." Grizz nodded and disappeared back outside with a new sense of urgency. I turned back to Leo, a cold dread washing over me. The white van, the professional operator. He wouldn't have been seen unless he was sloppy. And he wasn't sloppy, which meant he knew he'd been seen. He knew about the boy. My blood ran cold. The kid wasn't just a witness. He was a liability. Grizz came running back in, his eyes wide with a terror I had never seen on his face in 20 years. He was holding something in his hand, holding it like it was a live snake. It was another one of the black boxes, its little red light blinking patiently. "Where did you find it?" I demanded, already knowing the answer, already feeling the world drop out from under me. Grizz's voice was a choked whisper. "It was on the skateboard, taped to the bottom of the kid's skateboard he left by the door." The air in the clubhouse turned to ice. The little black box in Grizz's hand seemed to suck all the warmth, all the sound, all the hope out of the room. Its rhythmic blinking was no longer a simple warning light. It was the steady beat of a countdown timer on this little boy's life. Leo stared at it, his eyes wide with a child's simple confusion, not yet understanding that the toy he rode to save us had been turned into his own personal homing beacon. My mind, which had been spinning with thoughts of retaliation and survival, slammed to a halt and focused on a single, horrifying point. They knew. They knew about the kid. They knew he'd seen them, and they had tagged him like a wild animal. My hand shot out and grabbed Grizz's wrist. "Don't move!" I hissed, my eyes locked on the device. My training screamed at me. C4 charge, Grizz had said. Small, but big enough. Big enough to take out a child. Big enough to take out anyone standing too close to him. Was it on a timer? Was it motion sensitive? Was it tied to a remote detonator held by some faceless bastard in a white van who was watching us right now? We were trapped. The kid was a walking bomb, and we were standing right in the blast radius. "Leo," I said, my voice dangerously calm. I forced myself to look at him, to push a smile onto my face that felt like cracking granite. "We're gonna play a game. It's called Statue. You know how to play?" He nodded, a flicker of excitement in his eyes replacing the confusion. He was just a kid, after all. "Yeah, my dad and I play it all the time." "Good," I said. "That's real good. You have to stand perfectly still. Don't move a muscle. Don't even breathe if you can help it. Can you do that for me? Can you be the best statue in the whole world?" He puffed out his chest with pride. "I'm the best." He froze in place, a perfect little soldier at attention. My heart felt like it was going to tear itself out of my chest. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to snatch the kid and run, but I knew that could be the very thing that set it off. I looked at Grizz. His face was a mask of sheer panic. "Get Patch on the phone." "Now," I whispered, never taking my eyes off Leo. "Don't use his name. Tell him we have another device. Package is live. Repeat, the package is live and mobile. Ask for immediate EOD protocol. Yes or no answers only. Is it motion sensitive?" Grizz fumbled for the landline, his massive hands shaking. I could hear his strained whispers into the receiver. The seconds stretched into an eternity. Leo was doing an incredible job, but I could see a tiny tremor starting in his legs. He was a brave kid, but he was still a kid. How long could he hold on? Grizz hung up the phone, his face slick with sweat. He said it's not likely motion sensitive. The primary trigger is remote, but he can't be 100% certain without looking at it. He said C4 is stable, but the detonator, who knows what they used. He said we have to assume any electrical signal could set it off. A phone call, a radio signal, anything. Right. So we were in a lead-line box with a potential bomb, cut off from the world, with no idea who was hunting us or when they'd decide to pull the trigger. Fantastic. And the package was a 7-year-old boy. The skateboard was still in Grizz's hand. We couldn't leave it on him. We had to get it off, get it away from him. "Grizz," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "The tape. How is it attached?" He looked down, his eyes focusing. "Duct tape. Looks like 2 strips. Okay, here's what we do." My mind was working again, the panic solidifying into a cold, hard plan. "Snake," I called out softly to the man standing guard at the door. "Bring me my skinning knife, the one from my saddlebag, and a roll of electrical tape from the toolbox. Don't run. Walk." Snake disappeared and returned a moment later, moving with the quiet grace of a predator. He handed me the knife, its polished stag handle warm and familiar in my hand, and the roll of tape. I looked back at Leo. He was starting to wobble. "You're doing great, champ," I said, forcing another smile. "Best statue I've ever seen. We're just gonna fix your skateboard. It's a little broken. You just stay frozen for a few more minutes." I turned to Grizz. "Hold it steady. Don't let it slip." I took a deep breath, the metallic smell of fear in the back of my throat. My hands, which had rebuilt engines and stitched my own wounds, had never felt so clumsy. I held the razor-sharp tip of the skinning knife against the first strip of duct tape. My plan was simple. Slice the tape, get the device off the board, and get the board away from the kid. The problem was the 100 things that could go wrong. A slip of the knife, a sudden jolt, a static spark. I pressed down. The blade sliced through the thick gray tape with a soft hiss. 1 down. I moved the knife to the second strip, sweat beading on my forehead and trickling into my eyes. My entire world had shrunk to this single point of contact between steel and tape. The clubhouse was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. The whole chapter, my whole family, was holding its breath. The second strip parted. The black box was free. It lay there on the skateboard, connected to nothing but gravity, its red eye still blinking its patient, deadly rhythm. "Okay, Grizz," I whispered. "Easy now. Walk it to the back room. Place it on the steel workbench. Don't put it down hard. Place it like it's a sleeping baby. Then get everyone out the back. Everyone. Go to the safe house. Don't stop for anything." He nodded, his jaw tight, and began to back away, moving with an agonizing slowness, cradling the skateboard like it was a holy relic. I watched him go, then turned my attention back to Leo. "Okay, kid," I said, my voice full of false cheer. "Game over. You won." The relief that washed over his face was instantaneous. He broke his pose and grinned, a wide, happy smile that made him look like a normal kid again. "I did? What do I win?" "You win a ride," I said, scooping him up in my arms. He was lighter than I expected. "The fastest ride of your life." I ran. I didn't care about the trackers on our bikes anymore. They could have them. I burst through the front door and ran straight for my panhead. Screw the bomb squad. Screw protocol. That kid's face was seared into my brain, and a new, terrible certainty was forming. The tracker on his skateboard wasn't just to monitor him. It was a message. They knew he was here. They knew he was with us. They'd tagged him to see what we would do. They were watching. And if they knew he was here, they knew where he lived. They knew who his family was. I settled him in front of me on the seat, his small body tucked between my arms. "Hold on tight, Leo," I roared, kicking the engine to life. The panhead exploded with a thunderous growl that shook the very ground. I didn't look back. I twisted the throttle and we shot out of the parking lot, a blur of chrome and desperation. We had to disappear. But first I had to get this kid somewhere safe. I had to get to his house. I had to warn his mother. We raced through the sleepy afternoon streets, the wind whipping at our faces. Leo was laughing, a high, joyful sound that was the most beautiful and terrifying thing I had ever heard. We screeched to a halt in front of a small, neat house with a white picket fence and a perfectly manicured lawn. A child's bicycle lay on its side in the grass. It looked like a picture of suburban peace. But as I killed the engine, the sudden silence was broken by a sound that made my blood freeze all over again. It was a strange electronic beeping. Faint, but steady. It wasn't coming from us. It was coming from inside the house. That faint, electronic beeping was a death knell. It was the same rhythm, the same patient pulse, as the devices we'd found on our bikes. They weren't just watching us. They had already escalated. They had moved on to the next target. The family of the boy who had tried to stop them. My mind reeled with the chilling efficiency of it all. They hadn't just tagged the kid to see what we'd do. They'd tagged him to lead them right here. He wasn't just a liability. He was their unwilling guide. "Leo, stay here. Do not get off this bike," I commanded, my voice flat and cold. I swung my leg over the seat. Every muscle in my body coiled tight. The front door was slightly ajar. I pushed it open with the toe of my boot and stepped inside. The house was quiet. Too quiet. A half-eaten bowl of cereal sat on a coffee table in front of a cartoon playing on the television to an empty room. The beeping was louder in here, coming from the back of the house. I drew the heavy piece I always carried from the holster under my jacket, the click of the safety echoing in the silent house. I moved slowly, clearing each room like I'd been trained to do so many years ago. Living room? Clear. Dining room? Clear. The beeping grew stronger, leading me down a hallway. It was coming from the kitchen. I rounded the corner, weapon raised, my heart hammering a frantic rhythm against my ribs. A woman was tied to a kitchen chair, her eyes wide with terror. She had blonde hair like Leo's, and a gag made of duct tape was stretched across her mouth. On the table in front of her sat another one of those black boxes, its red light blinking in time with the beeping sound that filled the room. But it wasn't just the box. Wires snaked from it, connected to a much larger, cruder package wrapped in the same gray tape. It was a serious charge, big enough to take this whole house and half the block with it. And standing over her, a pistol held casually to her temple, was a tall, thin man in a blue hat and sunglasses. The man from the park. He didn't look surprised to see me. He smiled, a cold, empty thing that didn't reach his eyes. Stone, president of the Hells Angels. Took you long enough. I was beginning to think the kid wasn't as persuasive as I'd hoped. "Let her go," I said, my voice a low growl. I kept my weapon trained on his center mass. "This is between you and me." "Oh, I don't think so," he said, pressing the barrel of his gun harder against the woman's head. She whimpered, tears streaming down her face. "This is about business. Your little club has been a thorn in my employer's side for a long time. You've interfered with certain shipping routes. This is just a message. A rather explosive one, I'm afraid. A message that says no one is off limits. Not you, not your men, and certainly not the families of little heroes who see things they shouldn't." My mind raced. Who? What shipping routes? It didn't matter. All that mattered was the woman in the chair and the boy on my bike outside. He was stalling, talking. Why? He had the tactical advantage. He wanted something. "You're a professional," I said, taking a small step into the room. "I can tell. Professionals don't like loose ends, and they don't like witnesses. What happens after this goes off? You just walk away?" He chuckled. "Something like that. My exit is arranged. By the time the smoke clears, I'll be a ghost." The beeping suddenly got faster. A high-pitched, insistent tone. The final countdown. The man's smile widened. This was it. This was his plan. He was going to set it off and escape in the chaos. He wasn't stalling. He was waiting for the grand finale. In that split second, I saw it. His gaze flickered for a fraction of a second towards the back door, his escape route. And in that same instant, I remembered Leo's words. "My dad's a soldier. He's away right now." I gambled. "You're not the only ghost in this town," I snarled, and I dove to the side, not at him, but towards the floor, rolling behind the kitchen island just as he fired. The shot went wide, shattering a cabinet over my head. But my move wasn't about attacking him. It was about creating a distraction. The back door burst open. It wasn't one of my boys. It was a man in desert camo pants and a plain t-shirt, moving with a fluid, deadly grace that made my own military background feel like a Boy Scout jamboree. Leo's dad. He must have just gotten home. He must have seen my bike, seen the look on his son's face, and understood instantly that his home was under attack. He wasn't away. He was here. The man in the blue hat spun around, surprised, but he was too late. Leo's dad moved like lightning, disarming him in a blur of motion, a swift, brutal sequence that ended with the professional on the floor, unconscious, and his own pistol in the soldier's hand. The beeping was a frantic, screaming shriek now. We had seconds. Leo's dad didn't waste a moment. He grabbed the bomb from the table, his hands unbelievably steady. "Get my wife out of here," he yelled, already working on the device, his fingers flying across the wires with a familiarity that told me this was not his first time doing this. I sliced the ropes binding Leo's mum and half carried, half dragged her out the front door. I shoved her towards my bike. "Get on! Go!" I yelled at Leo, who was staring in shock. "That's your dad. He's the hero. Now go!" She scrambled on behind her son, and I gave the panhead a shove. "Go to my clubhouse. The address is on the vest. Tell them Stone sent you." She nodded through her tears, twisted the throttle clumsily, and the bike roared away down the street. I ran back inside. Leo's dad had the casing open. With 3 seconds to spare, he yanked a single blue wire. The screaming beep cut off, plunging the kitchen into a deafening silence. He slumped against the counter, breathing heavily, sweat pouring down his face. We looked at each other, two very different men from two very different worlds, bound by a debt that could never be repaid. The aftermath was swift. The professional was a hired gun for a major international syndicate that was trying to move their product through our territory. They thought we were just dumb bikers, an easy target to remove. They underestimated us, and they certainly didn't count on a 7-year-old boy on a skateboard, or his special forces father coming home on leave a day early. My boys, led by Patch, used the trackers to hunt down every last member of their operation in our city. We dismantled them piece by piece, quietly and efficiently. They had brought a war to our doorstep, and we gave them one back. A week later, Leo and his dad, whose name I learned was Mark, showed up at the clubhouse. The men parted for them like the Red Sea. Mark stood before me, a quiet, intense man who didn't need to raise his voice to command a room. "You saved my family," he said simply. "Your son saved all of us first," I replied, looking down at Leo, who was staring in awe at all the chrome. I knelt down. "You know, we have a name for guys like you in our club. We call them prospects. It means you're trying out to be a brother. I pulled a small patch from my pocket. It wasn't one of our official ones, but something I'd had made special. It was a cartoon T-Rex riding a tiny motorcycle. "You earned your patch, Prospect. You're the bravest man I've ever met." Leo's eyes lit up as he took the patch. It was a small gesture, but in our world it was the highest honor we could give. His family was put under our permanent protection. The Syndicate learned a valuable lesson. You don't mess with the Hells Angels, and you certainly don't mess with our friends. And sometimes the biggest threats don't come from the biggest men, but from the smallest boy with the biggest heart.